Andras for the agenda and the overall schedule of the meeting. Andras, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Daniel, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure for us to have you on this meeting, and I see that we are already over 200 participants and still coming. So that gives us the feedback that indeed this workshop is as important for market participants as important for us to inform us about all the latent activities of the balancing platforms and also exchange and share opinions and questions. So we are very thankful to you that you are able to participate on this webinar, and hope that we will be able to provide you some new information and a useful session, and wish all of us a fruitful meeting. And then I will just shortly guide you through the agenda that is planned today. So my name is Andras Sili. I'm the current chairman of Picasso and the IGCC project. And together with my colleague Dominic from Transnet, we will introduce you the first session for Picasso and IGCC. And after that, we will have the session for the Mari balancing platform with Václav Fanzer and Ulf Kasper. And then we will take a short break. And afterwards, we will finish with Terre, where Javier will introduce the latent activities of Terre balancing platform. And then at the end, we will have a dedicated Q&A session. And you can raise your questions for during all of the meeting. As Daniel already explained, the usage of Slido, you can submit your questions at any time. And then we will have a dedicated Q&A part after each of the sections. So we will answer the Picasso IGCC questions after this session, the Mari questions after the Mari sessions, and the Terre questions after the Terre session. And then at the end, we will have still, if time allows, a dedicated time for the remaining or the general questions. I would like to inform you in advance that although we will try our best to answer all the questions and comments that are rising during the meeting, we might not be able to answer all of them, either for time constraint or either we have not have the answers by hand. But in any case, all of the questions will be answered in a written form afterwards that will be circulated to all participants by ENTSO-E. So in any case, you will receive feedback to your question, even if it is not fitted in the time. And if during the Q&A session you feel that the answer to your question is not sufficient or it's not what you meant, then please feel free to adjust and give feedback. And I think I have already introduced everything what I wanted regarding the agenda. Maybe just one question to Daniel. Is it possible to switch off somehow the notification of the newcomers? Because
we'll try to.
Thanks. So fortunately, there are still a lot of people arriving, so we are getting more and more. But then I think we have already passed 7 minutes by 1, so I think we can start with the actual content, and wish everyone a fruitful meeting. So then I would start directly with the Picasso and IGCC balancing platforms introduction. Next slide, please, Daniel. We will have 3+1 section. The first, we will give you a general project overview and progress, what happened in the last 1 year or in the last couple of years. Then Dominic will give you a bit deeper introduction in the business processes and regarding the operational reporting. And then at the end, as I already mentioned, we will have a Q&A session for these 2 platforms, Picasso and IGCC, and then afterwards we will go on for the next topic. So we can start. Next slide, please, Daniel. Okay. So I think for those who are here at this webinar, most of you have already met with the name and abbreviation of Picasso, which is the balancing platform for the exchange of AFR balancing energy. currently the scope and the map is quite large because we have 26 TSOs from 23 countries, as Germany is present with 4 TSO. And these 26 TSO have joined the project already, and 4 TSO plus ENTSO-E is part of the project as an observer. You can see this on the right-hand side of the map. In dark green, the TSOs who are already in operation and exchanging, balancing AFR energy, and in still green but a bit lighter green, TSOs who are members and part of the project but not in operation currently, and then in a lighter color, which is almost yellow, you can see the observer TSOs. The successful go live of the Picasso platform has happened on the 1st of June 2022, which is before the legal deadline, and the first TSO who was joining was Chaps from Czech Republic. And then the first exchange happened in the same month, in the 22nd of June, when the 4 German TSOs and APG also joined the platform, and they are part of it ever since. And then still in the same year, Terre has also joined the Picasso platform. But later on this year, March 15, they have suspended their operation. And then between 2022 and this year, there has been a bit of a gap, where a lot of TSOs had implemented their local implementation projects. And now, in the second half of this year, we again had a quite busy period, since Tenet Netherlands, Energinet, SEPS, and Elia has also joined in the last couple of months of this year. So this brings us to the current status of the map with the TSOs who joined. And then the remaining member TSOs will gradually join the platform. So we have a detailed connection plan, which I will talk about later. And then, hope that sooner or later the whole map is going to be dark green, as you can see in the middle of Europe already. Picasso has a lot of relevant features, which will be introduced more in details later by Dominic. Here I just give you a really high-level overview and an impression that it establishes a domestic energy market for AFRR across whole Europe with a standard product. So this really means that there can be activations between Spain and Norway. Okay, not at the very moment, but hopefully sooner or later this will happen. But already across Europe, these activations can happen. And Picasso fosters an operational stability by the coordinating of activation of AFR. So indeed, the operational stability is just getting higher and higher as more TSO are joining in this common European platform. Picasso is using a 4-second market time unit. So instead of 15 minutes, we have our settlement based on 4-second market time unit, which gives us almost 8 million market clearings per year, which is quite a huge number. And you can see it later on during the reporting part that this also gives us a lot of data to process and publish. And then another important information is that the Picasso IT solution is also used in the current IGCC, so the International Grid Control Cooperation, which is closely interacting with Picasso, actually sharing the same optimization function, and a really close coordination between the two projects that also reflects in the member TSOs and also in governance. So these two projects and both the optimization is really, really linked together and almost can be considered as one. Then next slide, please, Daniel. Yes, you can see here the official accession roadmap of Picasso, which was published by the end of September. So just as a reminder, TSOs are publishing their accession roadmap officially twice a year. And these are the official accession roadmaps. You can see here the latest one. In the top, the dark green TSOs, so CHEPS, APG, the German TSOs, and Terre has already connected to the platform. And then you can see another 4 TSOs, so Tenet Netherlands, Energinet, CEPS, and Elia in another green color, because they are now already in operation, but at the publication of the last accession roadmap, this was not the case. So this is how we try to give you the information that the list of operational TSOs are really growing and growing. And then you can see afterwards the remaining TSOs who in the order of the planned accession date. So in the next couple of 1 or 2 months, you can we hope that ENTSO from Bulgaria and ADMI Greece will also join, such as the Baltic TSOs and FinGrid. So just in a couple of months, the map will be even larger than today. And then there are also the remaining TSOs who are planning to join either in the next 2 years, according to the detailed accession roadmap. And then just as a disclaimer, as you can see on the left-hand side, this is the current plan by the best knowledge of the TSOs, but does not represent the firm or binding commitment by them. So for really up-to-date informations and more detailed information, you have to contact the concerned TSOs. But this is the public and official information which the balancing projects have at the moment. And you can always find the latest accession roadmap on the link on the bottom of the slide on the ENTSO-E web page. Next slide, please, Daniel. Thank you. And then just a few words about IGCC. So IGCC is now already in operation since 2010. So it has quite a bit of history. And this was the first balancing platform that achieved really the aim and the goal of EBGL by netting the balancing demands in the opposite direction and create millions and millions of euros of savings each month. And then you can also see the current map of IGCC on the right-hand side, which has currently 24 operational members. And by ENTSO joining in 2023 March, all EU TSO who has the legal obligation to participate in IGCC has already fulfilled this. So this is also the first balancing platform where we completely fulfilled our legal obligations, and all TSO who are obliged is really on the board and doing the netting of balancing energy. And as of January 2024, Litgrid, AST, and Ellering, so the Baltic TSOs, also become an IGCC member, and their connection is planned in 2025 January. And on the bottom, you can see the historical evaluation, how TSO have gradually joined, which I will not take, and I will not go into details. As you can see, it's really history. But the most important is the current stage that all TSOs are on board and participating in IGCC. And with this, we can go on to the next slide, and I also close the general overview and progress, and we will go into the more detailed business processes with Dominic.
Yeah, thank you, Andras. Welcome everyone. As already said, my name is Dominic Schlipf. I'm working for Transit BW. Transit BW is the common service provider for the Picasso system. So on behalf of all the Picasso TSOs, we have the honor to operate the system. In the next 40 minutes, I want to give you an overview of the processes, the technical processes, and also the changes we had during the year, to give you a broader overview of what Picasso and the IGCC is doing and how they are interacting with each other. So first of all, Picasso and the IGCCs are platforms that optimize the activation of AFR. So it's not about capacity, it's really about energy and optimization of the energy and the activation of AFR over borders, so cross-border activation of those energy units. What do we have? So we have an activation optimization function, an AOF. This is a kind of an optimization system that is running, as already said, every 4 seconds. So every 4 seconds, this optimization system finds a new solution. And for Picasso, there is a certain ranking of the objectives that we have there. First of all, we have to maximize the demand. So the maximization of demand satisfaction, then it's the maximization of economic surplus, and then there are further objectives. And for the IGCC, it's first of all the maximization of, so the more creating of netting potential, the right distribution of this netting potential, and of course the maximization of netting. How do we do this? So more or less there is an optimization function and there are inputs in this optimization function, and these inputs are on the one hand the demand, the AFR demand of each TSO, so more or less the imbalances of each TSO, that's here in the left part in the bottom. Then, of course, the transmission capacities. We can only exchange AFR or netting over borders if there is sufficient capacity left. So that's the transmission capacities that are left over after all the previous markets. So after day ahead, after intraday, those capacities are then used in the balancing time frame. And for Picasso, of course, we need the bits that are procured by each TSO. So each TSO does its own procurement. And as a result of this procurement, the bits are then sent to the Picasso platform. There we now have all those information. We run now the optimization, and there is then there's outputs of this optimization. On the one hand, it's the selected bits. So we send now back to the TSOs a correction value so that the TSO now knows based on its imbalances and the correction value which bits he has to activate. For Picasso, we also calculate the cross-border marginal price per TSO, and we also calculate the flows. The flows are kind of one outcome of the optimization, where we then see, look, we transfer the AFR or the imbalance netting from TSO A to TSO B. There are several boundary conditions. One main boundary condition is that the flows are not allowed to exceed the transmission capacities, so we only exchange AFR where it's possible. We can go to the next slide. We can also show how this high-level design is then utilized on the complete level. Don't panic, I will not explain this slide into detail. It's just for you an overview that there is a central component, so the AFR platform itself, where the algorithm works and where we get all those information from the different TSOs. And then there is a level of the TSOs, and this level of TSO then communicates to the BSPs, so the balancing service provider. So the BSP has no direct connection to the Picasso platform. It's a TSO platform. So the TSO is the responsibility to get the bits and then to submit the bits to the platform. Also, the TSO is doing the local settlement, so that's the TSO BSP settlement, and of course within the TSO platform there's also TSO settlement. So this is more for information for you, and if we can now go to the next slide, we show the principle how this Picasso and the IGCC optimization now work together. So first of all, there is only one demand and there is only one cross-zonal capacity. that is available. So we have to deal now with this input with 2 different platforms. And this is done by 3 different optimization steps. Those steps are clearly defined in the implementation framework, Article 11.8. And there then the different A, B, C numbers. So first step that we have to do is the imbalance netting and optimal redistribution of AFR only for the Picasso region. So at the beginning, we take only DTSOs that are forming the Picasso region. We do there first netting of the imbalances, and then we redistribute the AFR activation based on the principles of Picasso. Based on this first result, we now get a change in the demands of each TSO that is part of the Picasso region, because we have now added the correction values to the different demands. And then we go into the second step. That's now the imbalance netting process via the IGCC. So now we take the whole group of the IGC participants with the input from the first optimization step. And then we do the netting in the IGCC. So there is no additional activation of AFR here. It's just that we look where is netting potential, and we try to maximize this netting then in the whole IGCC area, which covers also the Picasso area. Then we have a result, and this result is the IGCC. For the IGCC participants, that's the IGCC result. And for the Picasso participants, we now have to do a third step, because based on the IGCC corrections, there might be now not optimal distribution of the first AFR step. So that's why we do a third AFR optimization step, where we again just take the region of the Picasso TSOs, but now with the changed demands based on the second step of the IGCC activation, and then do a redistribution of the AFR activation. So, and then with this 3 steps, we achieve that the both optimization regions, the Picasso region and the IGCC regions, find their optimal points, so that on the one hand, the netting in the IGCC is maximized, and on the other hand, the economic surplus in the Picasso region is maximized. So that's kind of important to understand that those 2 optimization steps are interlinked with each other. Now, perhaps if we can go to the next slide, there is an example for this. So first of all, on the left-hand side, we see the IGCC. So the IGCC, the aim is to avoid the AFR activation. This is done only by imbalance netting. So we have in the bottom an example, 3 LFC areas, A, B, C. The first LFC area has a demand of plus 50 megawatt, and the other 2 LFC areas have a demand of minus 60 megawatt and minus 40 megawatt. So if assuming that there's free capacities, the netting potential is 50 megawatt, which is the minimum of the values in one direction. So here, 50 megawatt. So now we create correction signals, and after this netting, we get now a demand in area A of 0, because everything is netted. And then we have to distribute now this 50 megawatt to the areas B and C. And this is now done proportionally based on their demand. So the area B gets a correction signal of 30 megawatt, resulting in an AFR demand after the IGCC of 30 megawatt, and the area C gets a correction value of 20 megawatts, resulting then in a correction or a demand after the netting of 20 megawatts. For Picasso, the aim is now to minimize the activation costs. So what we do there is, again, we do a netting, but we do also a cross-border AFR activation. So here you see this then now a little bit different area, a little bit different result, because the first 20 megawatt of bits are quite cheap in area A. So the area A now gets not the full, it gets again the full netting from the other areas, but it gets an additional 20 megawatts correction value because the negative bits in area A are also now activated to cover the demand of area B and C. So that's the differences between the two systems. So in IGCC, it could never be that your your demand after the netting is in another direction, but in Picasso, this might happen very well because you get additional correction values based on where the bits are placed. And next slide, please. Here in this example, we only looked at IGCC and Picasso in two separate bins. But at the moment, we have the situation that the area of the IGCC and the area of Picasso are not the same. So at the moment, the TSO can receive contrary correction signals for IGCC and Picasso. So it might be that in the IGCC step, you get a positive contribution in one area, and in the Picasso step, you get a negative contribution based on the principles that I just showed before, that it might be that that there is a lot of activation of bits in your region. As long as there are TSOs in IGCC, this effect can happen. And as long as there are a lot of IGCC participants and less Picasso participants, this can lead to large effects. But, and that is very relevant for the local AFR activation, only the sum of IGCC and Picasso contribution is relevant for the TSO. So we always sum those correction signals up to activate then AFR. And we see here one very impressive result. This is based on this screenshot was taken shortly after the accession of Terre Netherlands, where we see exactly this behavior. So we see an IGCC contribution in the upward direction, while in the parallel we see a Picasso contribution in the downward direction. So this is exactly this contradicting activation scheme. So in the end, there will be an activation in downward direction because again we take the sum of both values if we go to the controllers. So that's in a basis how the different systems interact with each other. Now let's skip to the next business process of Picasso, the pricing. So Daniel, if you can go to the next slide, please. The Picasso systems follows the so-called controlled demand model. So this means that there is an AOF, and based on the AOF, we calculate a correction signal. And this correction signal is not transferred directly to the BSPs, as I showed you already in the high level before. It's given to the local frequency controller, to each LFC of the different TSOs. And this LFC controller then takes the demand, it takes the correction value, it calculates an LFC input value, and this input value is then given in the controller. There's a certain dynamic of the controller, and based on the controller output and the local merit order list, the BSPs are then activated, given a signal. So each TSO calculates in its own control cycle the demand, and then gives it to the AOF, and from the AOF it gets back a correction signal, and this AOF correction signal and the AFR activation is then forming the LFC input. So the AOF just determines the AFR interchange based on the local CMOL without considering any ramping constraints or any constraints that are then later on included by the local controllers. We can go to the next slide. We come to the pricing basic principles. In the Picasso region, based on the EVGL, we shall, or we have to, and we had applied marginal pricing, meaning the marginal price represents the price of the highest bid of standard production, which has been either selected or locally requested. That's one addition for the next slide, to cover the energy need for balancing purposes within the specific area. So here as an example, we have this common merit order lists, and then we look at the demand that needs to be satisfied in this common merit order list, and we see, okay, the demand is covered until bid 8, so the price of bid 8 is now determining the cross-border marginal price. So in case there is no congestion between the different LFC areas, so we have one uncongested area, how we call it, then the cross-border marginal price will be the same price in these areas. If there are congestion, then there will be a price split, and there will be one cross-border marginal price in one area and another cross-border marginal price in the other area. So there will be a congestion, and based on this congestion, we then get a congestion rent. This is then also determined in the TSO settlement and is then also allocated to the respective TSOs. So like it's done in the day-ahead markets and or the intraday markets. And we wrote here that the cross-border marginal price is either determined by the bid selected by the AOF or by the bid locally requested, and that's now shown in the next slide. That's one new thing that was introduced into the Picasso system this year. So Daniel, if you can again change this slide, thanks a lot. There were two different decisions from Acer during the year. It's the decision 8/2024 and the decision 9/2024. And based on this decision, also the set point of the LFCs, so the LFC output, has to be taken into account when we calculate the marginal price. We see this in the right-hand side. So there's not only anymore the demand as one input of the optimization, AFR optimization, there is now also the set point of the AFR controller now playing a role for the optimization, and there especially for the price determination of the optimization. So the Picasso AOF will now compute the cross-border marginal price per LFC area and optimization cycle now based on two values. On the one hand, the AFR that are selected by the AOF and the LFC and the AFR that was selected by the LFC output. And then the AOF compares and calculates then the cross-border marginal price as the minimum of the maximum local marginal price, so the intersection of the LMOL and the LFC output, as it was given to the Picasso platform, and the cross-border marginal price that is determined according to the result of the AOF output itself. So more or less, we have two different cross-border marginal prices, and we take in the end the minimum. You can see this, for example, here in this graph. In the beginning, we see that the AOF output in red here is rising, while the LFC controllers have a certain dynamic, so they are activating or requesting the AFR a little bit slower. So in this case, this blue line determines the cross-border marginal price. So there are then two different situations that can also occur. If no AFR is requested in an uncongested area, either by the AOF or by all the controllers that are in this uncongested area, then the price that is, so the cross-border marginal price that is then chosen is the price for perfect netting. So more or less the midpoint between the cheapest and the most expensive bid. And this situation, so this perfect netting price, also applies for situations where the LFC output of all controllers of the uncongested area has another sign than the AOF output, because then it's not clear if the uncongested area is really activating in one or in the other direction. So with this principle, it's now introduced that the cross-border marginal price, especially in situation where the demand changes quite rapidly, is determined really by the AFR that is really requested by the local controllers. And with this approach, more or less, we minimize the occurrence of the so-called price spikes, so short changes in the price of the AOF. Now we've introduced another word, the perfect netting price. So that's now defined on the next slide. Daniel, if you can change the slide. So the AOF has to calculate a price in every situation. So we need for every optimization cycle one price. And it's quite easy. If the uncongested area activates in positive direction, we need a cross-border marginal price that is positive. And if it's in negative direction, we need a cross-border marginal price that is in negative direction. But now, given the situation that there is no AFR activation, which is quite frequent that this situation happens due to the effects of netting and so on, there are several situations where no AFR is activated. We also need to determine a price, and therefore we have to take the price for perfect netting. And this price is calculated by two factors. So we go into the common merit order list and we look at the cheapest bit in upward direction. So the beginning of the merit order list in upward direction. And we look at the most expensive bid in downward direction, most expensive meaning a positive price in negative direction, so that the BSP is willing to pay to the TSO. That's in this case the most expensive bid. So again, the beginning of the merit order list in downward direction. And this perfect netting price is then determined by those two bid prices, and we take the middle point. That's the perfect netting price, and this is shown during, if we publish the prices, this is shown by that the price is defined in positive and in negative direction at the same time. And I've now taken 20 days of operation of the Picasso region and just shown to show you that this situation of perfect netting occurs for a lot of MTUs. So if in this area here, 7 LFC blocks is the maximum. So you see in 3% of the time, the uncongested, so the whole Picasso region was one uncongested area without any activation. And even if you look at then again at the 7% of the 6 LFC blocks, so around 10% of the time, 6 or 7 TSOs form together this perfect netting situation. So it happens quite often that this perfect netting price is applied. I've also written here a standard example. So that's the normal way how the merit order list is structured. So for example, we have a bid in the first bid is around 120 euro per megawatt hour in positive direction, and in negative direction it's 40 euro. So the midpoint is then 120 plus 40, so the midpoint is 80 megawatt. But it happened it happened in rare cases, but those cases happened that the common merit order list of Picasso doesn't look that standard, where we see, especially in negative direction, extreme high prices with a positive sign. So here the starting point of the CMOL in positive direction is again at around 120 euro per megawatt hour, but the starting point of the CMOL in negative direction is at 4,000 euros per megawatt hour. So there is obviously a BSP that is willing to pay to the TSOs 4,000 euro per megawatt hour if it's activated. And then we still have to calculate the full netting price in this way, because that's the definition that we have. So then in this situation, the full netting price will result in 2,060 euro per megawatt hour. I don't want to question if this is a economical feasible bid, if this is an error in the bid submission or whatever. It's a bid that is allowed because the the standard definition of, or the definition of the standard products allows prices up to 15,000 euro in each direction. So this might happen, and you might see this if when you analyze the cross-border marginal prices of Picasso on this 4-second interval level, then you might sometimes see such occurrences of very high values for the full netting price. And on the other hand, if you are a BSP, please be aware that if you bid in negative direction with a very high price, this means that you are willing to pay to the TSOs this price, and you will pay this price to the TSO if you are activated, and it's most likely that you're activated. Good. Then next slide, just to finish the pricing principle. Yeah, as said, platforms are TSO model. So based on the AOF outputs and the AOF results, the TSOs do their settlement. So that's the TSO settlement. But of course, the cross-border marginal price is also used for the local processes, where then the TSO BSP settlement took place. That is then based on the activated or requested values based on the local principles. So as it's shown here, the TSO settlement, that's a defined European process that's common for all the TSOs joining the Picasso region. TSO BSP settlement is then local processes that are also based on the local terms and conditions. Good, that's for the pricing. And now to the last feature that was added during this year. Daniel, on the next slide, with the introduction of this decision 8/2024 and 9/2024 by ACER, not only the change in the cross-border marginal price determination was introduced, but also the possibilities for TSOs to define a part of their demand that they submit to Picasso as elastic. This part that could be defined in elastic can only be the part of the demand that is above the dimensioned need. So all demand that is below the dimension need needs to be always inelastic. But everything above can be defined as elastic. Elastic demand means then that this demand is not fulfilled on any costs, but you can define a price cap or a price threshold for this elastic demand. The only TSO that is at the moment applying this elastic demand principle is the TSO from Belgium, so ELIA, that joined 15, 16 days ago. The principle and how we do this mathematically, this is all described in the public mathematical AOF description that can be found on the ENTSO-E transparency homepage. Mathematically, it's not that easy to calculate this, and that's why we don't show the mathematical formulas in this presentation, but an example. If we can go now to the slide 18, please. So we have here an example. No, sorry, just the next slide. It's the slide before. Yeah. Sorry, Daniel, I have another numbering. Sorry for this. No. So we now have here a TSO-A, and this TSO-A is using the elastic demand. The elastic demand is set to at 250 megawatt, and the overall demand is at 3,200. So without an elastic demand, the cross-border marginal price for TSO-A would be 8,000 euros because the full demand is activated. Here there is no cross-zone capacity available, so the full amount is activated, and this will result in a cross-border marginal price of 8,000 euros. Now, if we apply the demand, so the threshold is here 250 megawatt, that's the energy threshold, and the price threshold used in this example is at 600 euro per megawatt hours. Then the cross-border marginal price for TSO-A is 500 euros because everything that would be activated above this 250 threshold would result in a price that is higher than the set price threshold. So in this example, the cross-border marginal price results in 500 euros per megawatt hour, and the AFR that is activated is 300 megawatt. So there is a remaining unsatisfied demand of 20 megawatts. And this 20 megawatts is not covered by the AOF and is more or less unsatisfied. So this is how the principle of elastic demands works. So only AFR is activated above the given threshold if the cross-border marginal price will result in a lower price than the price threshold is given. But, and that's now very important, and that's shown on the next slide, the elastic demand is not a guarantee or a kind of price cap for the TSO, because as we see here in this example, we have two LFC areas, TSO-A and TSO-B, without any ATC restriction. So there is a freedom to exchange the AFR between those two different areas. And we have a very high demand at area B and a lower demand in area A. So for area A, where the elastic demand is used, no activation. So the activation is done until the 70 megawatt. So the price cap, everything is okay. But area B needs a lot of AFR, and if there is no ATC restriction, we can take the common merit order list that is shown here in the middle, and this will result now in a cross-border marginal price of 10,000 euros for area A and for area B. So that's a very important part of the elastic demand. The elastic demand does not guarantee that the cross-border marginal price is always below the given price threshold. It's only then done if the AFR is activated only for the local TSO that is using the elastic demand. Good. That's more or less the overview of the business processes that were introduced during the year. So more or less the cross-border marginal price, the new adaptation, and the elastic demand. Now, coming to a very short part, how does Picasso work and what are the operational results? Perhaps we can go to the next slide. We have here chosen values from, again, the same period, the same 20 days from November, because there we already had the TSOs from Denmark and from Slovakia, so SEPS and ENDK and TenneT Netherlands live. And you see here in blue, that's the demand. So this is the demand that would have been covered by the local TSOs without IGCC and without the Picasso region. And in green, you see the corrected demand. And the difference between green and blue, that's more or less the effect of netting. So that's the huge effect of avoiding AFR in activation in different directions. And then red and purple, that's then the normal AFR activation scheme. So that's the activation dynamic of the controller and the activation dynamic of the BSPs. We go to the next slide. We also see now, we zoom out now for the full year 2024, and there we see the economic surplus generated by Picasso per month. The overall surplus until the 15th of November was around 132 million euros. If we take also into account the additional demand that we had satisfied, it's to 600 million euros, but it's more or less a kind of a fictive number. So the surplus generated was around 133 million euros. We see that the economic surplus is higher for small LFC areas because those small LFC areas get through Picasso access to a higher share or a higher amount of AFR. And just for your notice, there's also, of course, inner German AFR activation that is not shown here. And if we can go to we skip the next slide. This is just shown that Picasso also activates additional demand or satisfies additional demands that would have not been satisfied if the TSO were alone, so without the Picasso region. But just in the purpose of timekeeping, I want to go to the next slide where we show the effects of the IGCC. And from my point of view, with the economic surplus or social economic welfare, how we call it in IGCC, you see the enormous effects that result if the corporations grow and grow. So you see here the amount of netted imbalances in the IGCC, which sum up since now several years to values above 1 terawatt hour per month. So usually we have in the IGCC a netting potential of 1.1 terawatt hours per month. If we transfer this to money, so to the avoided AFR activation, we can see this on the next slide. Then we get to enormous numbers because the energy has an enormous value. And Daniel, if you can now skip this, go to the next slide. We transfer this now into money, and if we transfer this into money, then we see that the economic surplus generated by the IGCC ranges at the moment at around 60 million euros, which is savings every month. And if we aggregate the values of the IGCC since the beginning, then we end up now at 3.1 billion euros. That was saved just with an algorithm. Yeah. And then last slide for the operational results. That's an overview of the IGCC with a focus on how efficient is the IGCC. So we have here shown the potential netting, so the theoretical available netting, and compare this with the actual realized netting. And we see here that around 76% of the theoretical netting could be facilitated by the IGCC. So the netting can then be facilitated if the ATC is available. And with this graph, we show that more or less around 75% of the time the ATC is available to facilitate the whole netting of the IGCC. So that's it from my point of view for the part of my presentation. I think we now have some time for some first answers, questions and answers.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start while people are asking the questions here on this poll with some questions received by the general Q&A.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just, for the moment, start with the first one with the most likes. So just a reminder, please like the question so we can see which ones should be answering first. The first one is, when will the Italian TSO Terre rejoin the Picasso platform?
Yeah, this is a tough question. So we are at the moment representing the projects that are facilitating the platform and not the local TSO. So this is a question that has to be raised to Terre because we are at the moment not able to answer it from a platform perspective.
Yes, so formally speaking, Picasso project has no official date for Terna's reconnection. For further details, please contact Terna or the Italian NRA ARERA.
All right, I'll ask another question here from the general before the questions here on the slide appear.
Yep.
Second one, what happens with the unsatisfied demand, if there's any, when applying elastic demand for AFR?
That's also a good question. It more or less the design of the elastic demand with the AFR dimensioned need as a minimum threshold. It happens the same as it would have been happen if you are not connected to Picasso. So there is then an unsatisfied demand, which will result in an ACE, so an area control error of your local area, and in the end, it will result in a frequency change. So more or less, you influence with an unsatisfied demand the frequency. the same as it is at the moment if you are not connected to the Picasso platform and have not access to the full merit order list. Once your demand exceeds your available AFR band, then also there is an unsatisfied demand and goes to the frequency.
Just a reminder for everyone, we're going to be, if we can answer your questions here today, we're going to be compiling them and answer them in our raw document. But maybe we can start with the questions here from the presentation. So maybe we can go with the...
maybe I go from the bottom up. What's the computation time of the Picasso algorithm? So as said, the optimization cycle of the optimization of Picasso is 4 seconds. So we need to calculate a result every 4 seconds. We have a good margin at the moment there, so the computation time is far below 4 seconds. The saving mentioned in slide 8, a net saving, we also considering, no, they are not a net savings. That's more or less brutto savings. So we do not consider cost for implementation and operation of the IGCC platform there. But I can assure you that the costs for operating and implementation of the IGCC platform are far below the savings that the platforms generate.
So if you look on the magnitude of savings, then the actual implementation cost of that is really a negligible amount compared to that.
Yeah. Good. Then where are the cross-border marginal prices for the TSO settlement? That's the prices that we also published. That's the cross-border marginal price on a 4-second value.
But I think the question referring that where are these? So
where you can find them?
I believe that was...
Yeah, so they are published on the ENTSO-E transparency platform. Good.
Yeah,
then,
if
Andras, perhaps you can answer this question to the next question.
So if that was not what the questionnaire person was aiming, then please specify, and then we can also answer you in the written form. But yeah, the cross-border marginal prices are published in the ENTSO-E TP. And then which question did you refer, Dominic? Next one.
Yeah, so I think the question, how much did the implementation of the IGCC Picasso Mari platform cost? I think we cannot answer this at the moment. There is the EB cost report where those numbers are published based on my knowledge. But maybe that's a question we have to answer then in written.
Yes, indeed. But there are certainly CapEx and OpEx costs because the operation is continuous, and then these CapEx costs are below 10 million euros in general for each of the platforms. But more detailed answers can be found in this cost report that is published each second year.
Then, yes, the next question, TSOs keep part of the interconnect capacities as margin for technical safety reasons. Is this margin used for IGCC Picasso balancing? So the ATC that Picasso and the IGCC can use is the leftover aftermarket. So it's clearly defined. There is an NTC. After the NTC, there are different market times. So one big example is the day-ahead market. Then there's the XBIT intraday market. And after this, there results a still available transmission capacity. So it's more or less the NTC minus all other trades. And that's the resulting capacities we are allowed to use. Then the other question, it would be interesting to see a comparison between the new and the old calculation method of did it lead to lower prices? Yes, by definition, because we always take the minimum of the AFR that is activated and the AFR that is requested by the AOF. So by definition, it has to be lower than the cross-border marginal price before. Okay, and then the other question, how often does the algorithm run? Every 4 seconds. So 21,600 times per day.
Yeah, and I see, Dania, that also in this section, there has been other questions which are filtered. Maybe.
Yeah, so for instance, there was a question on slide 18, which is the one that has the most likes. Why would BSP bid negative prices? What profit do they see from that? So why would BSP bid negative prices? What profit do they see from that? Maybe we can go to the slide, perhaps, or do we need to? Or
I think it's enough if you show the questions, and only
So,
if the question is specifically referring to a slide, then we can dig into it. But yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so from my point of view, the answer is purely speculative because I'm not representing a BSP. I've never traded for a BSP. So yeah, I think for positive prices in negative direction, there is a kind of justification. It's really depending if you have a storage and you want to fill the storage, then you are able to accept to pay money. In positive direction and a negative price, there might be also some reasons for this, but really we don't know what possible reasons might be.
Yeah, so
and just for everyone to know, there's another big question asked a lot in the Q&A was whether you can get the explanations of the acronyms, so the abbreviations. We posted the slides on the ENTSO-E website where you register for these events, so you can access the websites and get the presentations. And in the presentations, you're able to see all the abbreviations for the terms that are currently being used. So that may be we posted already on the chat, so you can also access through there. I don't know, should we have a last question, Dominic?
Yeah, I think
for
we
the
still
section?
have some time, so if there are still questions, we can tackle them. I see also in this general part question for slide 10. So is only the procured bid that are transferred to Picasso or BSP's
Is only the
offered bids?
procured bid that transferred to Picasso, or BSP's offered bids, or all of them procured and not procured?
Yeah, so the answer is both. Yeah.
Yeah, so both are submitted if both are standard bids. So every standard bid has to be submitted to the platforms, no matter if they are capacity bids or free bids.
Yes, and there is also another question that all of the bids made to the TSOs are submitted to the Picasso and Mari platform if the TSO is an operational member. So then the answer is the same, that yes, indeed, all TSO all bids needed to transfer. At least this is the standard answer by default. In a very specific case, when a TSO is applying an approved methodology, this can be deviated. But currently, this is not the case for TSO. So the general answer is that yes, all bids that has been submitted to the TSO need to be transferred to the platform as a transparent way. Yes,
and maybe another one as well is once the TSO is operational member of Picasso, also Mari, are they obliged to set aside some capacity on borders for these services? That's the currently most likely one.
So no, the answer is no.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, only if you have a capacity cooperation, like it's done, for example, in Germany and Austria, then there needs to be some capacity reserved, but not as a general rule.
Yes, so at the moment it is not obligatory, and the TSOs don't need to do this. However, as we have currently balancing energy exchanging platforms, in the future TSOs are implementing balancing capacity cooperations as well, which some TSOs already do at the very moment, as said by Dominic, for example, Germany and Austria. In those cases, if you have also balancing capacity exchange, then you need to reserve cross-zona capacity to exchange this capacity. But As a general feature for the balancing energy platforms, Picasso, Mari, and the rest, it is not obliged to set aside any kind of capacity. And then if there are no any free capacity, then the rules that Dominic has just explained to you will do the constraints if there are no persona capacity for these exchange.
We also have 2 new questions here on the presentation now. So what is the full netting price used for it, or if there are no activations? What is the full netting price used for if there are no activations?
Yeah, there might be still an activation based on the controller output or on the behavior of the plant. So to calculate some local settlement, it might be necessary to have still a price.
Yes, and also for the calculation of the imbalance price. So even at that point, you need to have a cross-owner marginal price for AFR, and yes, indeed, an even more likely case is that the local activation and the Picasso activation deviate from each other, and then you need to know what was the cross-border marginal price that you need to settle internally. Is there any more questions regarding this section, Daniel? Because I think then we can have like 2 more minutes, and then we will not use the time of the colleagues.
Yes, so we answered the ATC as well. Yeah, I believe, and on the slide, and then maybe the last one for the general Q&A, whether the savings mentioned in slide 28 are net saving. So also considering the cost of implementation. Yeah.
This has been already answered by Dominic, so we already tackled this question beforehand. Yeah. But then I would remind the colleagues that you can still submit questions, and then there will be a general Q&A at the end of the presentation if they are not dedicated to any of the platform directly. And also after the workshop in a few weeks, we will provide a written response to all of the questions that were submitted today. So hope that we could answer your questions in this section, but if not, you can still make use of the last Q&A session, and we will submit also the written responses later on. And with this, I would like to thank you, your attention regarding the Picasso and IGCC projects, and they would hand over the words for the Mari colleagues to continue this session.
Thank you, Andras. Thank you for handing over. So shortly introduce me and then also my colleague. So my name is Václav Lanzer. I'm from Czech Republic. I'm the chairman of the Mari project, where Mari project, as you are perhaps familiar with, is the aim is to implement, operate, and develop the MFR platform, or Mari platform, if you like. The platform is operated for all TSOs by colleagues in Amprion. That's why Ulf is here with me. Amprion is one of the German TSOs, and as said, represented now here by Ulf. That being said, I think we can move to the next slide, which brings us to the agenda. So the agenda is as follows. I will guide you through the introductory part and lay down, say, some common ground. Ulf will then afterwards inform you about the operational platform results, and later on I will provide you with information about the accession roadmaps and summary and outlook. At the very end, answers to the questions will be provided. Please first focus on the Mari-related questions and then to the general questions. The general questions will be tackled at a common part at the very end of today's workshop. That being said, I think we can move to the very next slide. Right, yeah, so that's that. A little rehearsal in order to lay out the common foundation of knowledge. So hypothetical example, so in case of, let's say, an outage of the power plant, the process is as follows: the frequency containment reserves stands, then followed by AFR, MFR, and RR if applicable in certain regions or in certain countries. Meaning the different balancing processes and products to contain and restore the system frequency in case of imbalances are used. FCR activation is distributed by the whole synchronous area. Everyone helps a little to everyone or to one. Each LFC area is responsible for restoration of its system balance by activation of AFR, MFR, and RR if applicable, and pending the size of the outage, of course. If the outage is rather small, FCR and AFR will handle. If the outage is bigger or more serious, then tending to be more longer in terms of time, then MFR and RR can be used. Legally, the EBGL, Electricity Balancing Guideline, set the requirement for the implementation of balancing platforms for cross-border activation of these balancing products. Lastly, the operation of balancing platforms allows for the cost-optimal restoration of imbalances for TSOs, providing there are the available capacities to export or import, depending on the direction. So that's for the right side. As said, each balancing process is being implemented, operated, and further developed by dedicated projects. So for IGCC, that implements imbalance netting, that's Picasso. That's IGCC. Sorry, for Picasso that implements AFR, that's Picasso, and Mari for MFR, and Terre for RR. As said throughout the presentation, Transnet BW is a common service provider, CSP, for IGCC and Picasso, and Amprion acts as a CSP, a provider for Mari. Balancing platforms are used by TSOs. That's for the introduction. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide then. So yeah, that's about the introduction of Mari itself. Mari project has been set up early in 2017 to provide a basis for MFR platform to implement, operate, and develop further. It started with a dry run of CHEPs in July 2022, followed by technical go-live in September 2022, and first exchange of balancing energy and operation was in between CHEPs and German TSOs at the beginning of October 2022. In summer 2023, APG has joined. During the Q4 2024, several TSOs joined, namely Elring, AST, and Litgrid from Baltics. That happened in October. REN from Portugal has joined at the end of October. At the beginning of December, SEPS has accessed as well, or became a go-live operational TSOs. And lastly, yesterday, and I'm happy to say so, Spanish colleagues connected as well. What I would like to highlight now is that they are now full operational TSOs. However, for a couple of days, they aim to be in decoupled mode, meaning not allowing for exchange, just to get used to the operation. And then after a couple of days, shortly before Christmas, nice Christmas gift to market participants, there is perhaps an intention to start to activate if there are, of course, capacities cross-borderly. That is also represented in the map on the right side, where you can see the TSOs in operation, non-operation, TSOs sharing ATC. About ATC, I will talk later on as well. TSOs that are technically ready, and Mari observers, the TSOs or countries that are with the observer status. Relevant features of Mari platform. Mari provides or allows counter-activation of MFR energy for economic optimization. So there can be negative and positive energy activated at the same time if that's economically advantageous. What is a special feature for MFR is that the energy bits can be activated either for balancing locally or for system constraints, and it allows direct and scheduled activation, where BSP has to choose whether he provides the directly or scheduled activatable bit. So that's about the interaction of Mari. I believe we can move to the next slide, please. This is the description how Mari platform is working. That's in a nutshell very similar to what my colleague Dominic was earlier describing. It's a TSO model where BSPs provides bits to TSOs, then TSOs assess them and send the bits to the common algorithm where it creates the CMOL common merit order list. And shortly afterwards, when there is a need, as said at the beginning, with the example, if there is, for example, an outage of power plant, then there could be also a demand. Or if there is a surplus of electricity, like for example from renewables, then there could be also a demand for negative energy. Alongside with the demands, also the cross-zonal capacities are provided. Then all this is eaten by the algorithm, evaluated, and afterwards provides the results, meaning the selected bits, netted demands in case of scheduled activation and cross-border exchanges. Also, information goes to transparency platform and to the settlement module, and the used capacities are sent through the CMM to the Picasso afterwards. So the remaining capacities are used afterwards. When the selected bits are sent to TSOs, TSO sends the activation request, and that's that. I think this described the whole thing, so I think we can move to the next one, the next slide, which are the operational platform. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, there is one more thing, and that's the high-level plan. So as said, a couple of TSOs has access towards the end of 2024. Some more shall access in 2025 and 2026. That's the main task, the main goal for the upcoming years, to facilitate and support TSOs accessions to Mari platform. At the beginning of the next year, there will be a new version of Mari platform, version 7, which doesn't have any effect on the stakeholders, but no direct impact on stakeholders, but that's just to inform you about that. Also, TSOs will start to use the PCN, they are focusing on PCN implementations that's applicable to TSOs in operation. That's a communication network being used for communication. After version 7 being deployed in perhaps Q1, in the course of Q1 2025, further development of Mari platform can be considered if needed. Yeah, in year 26 and later, it's anticipated that energy countries, TSOs, access to Mari platform. That's, say, an expectation. We don't know it for sure. What you can, as a stakeholders, expect is second annual implementation framework report and third annual implementation framework report provided at the beginning of next year's 25 and 26. That's that. That's about a high-level plan for the project for next years. And now I think we are getting to the operational reporting. So Ulf, the floor is yours. Please guide us through.
Okay, thank you, Vaclav. Good afternoon, everybody. Similar as Dominic, I may, as common service provider from Amprion, present you the operational results. We consider the same period for this report as in Picasso, so from beginning of the year until mid-November this year. And what I will focus on in the next slides are actually 4 different types of analysis. The first one is about requested and activated MFR using MARI. So basically it provides you with an overview on which country has requested and activated how much MFR energy. We will hopefully see there who is more an importing country, which country is more exporting. We will have an analysis on the demand per country. So basically from this you can see if there are countries which have more the tendency to use direct or scheduled activations or price elastic demands. Then we will have a look at the MFR prices, which will give you some overview on how price situation is at the MFR platform. Keep in mind that we don't have continuous activation as in AFR, so it's more that you have single events with different prices. And last but not least, we will have a look at the economic surplus. So basically, what is the economic benefit resulting from MARI? And I think this time in comparison to last time, we have made here a distinction between consumer rent, producer rent, congestion income. I think this was one of the requests last time. Having that said, let's switch to the next slide, please. Thanks a lot. What you can see here is in the upper part of the slide, it is the requested and activated MFR in positive direction in megawatt hours, and on the lower part of the slides is the negative MFR requested and activated. And you can see this per country. So basically, as until mid of November, only 6 countries have been connected. You see it for Czechia, Austria, Germany, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And you see different colors because we have the satisfied, so I go from up to down now, the satisfied scheduled activated demand, so the SA demand, the satisfied direct activated demand, DA demand, and obviously there's also unsatisfied demand both for direct activations and scheduled activations, and there we have to make a distinction because for scheduled activation, if you have a price elastic demand, then you can also have unsatisfied demand, which is elastic and which is, so to say, okay, because you wanted to activate something for a certain price, you didn't get it for the price, and this implies then, usually this is for the colleagues from Czechia, that they have some specific products they can use locally. While it's more interesting from a system operation perspective if you have unsatisfied direct activation demands or price inelastic unsatisfied scheduled activation demands. And of course, we have this then always on the right columns. We have direct activated scheduled we have activated scheduled activated bits and activated direct activatable bits. There are several interesting things in the slides. Maybe the first one is you see that there's obviously a difference in the amount of activations. So although the Baltic TSOs have only joined the platforms in October, they have significantly more activation requests and activations. You can also see that not, especially in the negative direction, not all the activation requests have been met. This is due to the fact that the Baltic TSOs at this point in time are in an interim phase. They have joined MARI. From an electric perspective, they are still connected to the Russian grid. and are in the process of switching and also implementing Picasso, then of course to the Central European grid. And this is just why you see this behavior here. But I think so far it's noteworthy that there are different ways of using MFR at the Mari platform at this point in time. But even if you look at the left-hand side, in both cases, you can, so both for positive and negative MFR, you can see that there are also different activation strategies. As originally indicated, the Czech colleagues have more the tendency to use price elastic demands, which are not always covered. The Austrian colleagues have a tendency to also apply direct activatable demands, and the German TSOs, as a tendency, have more scheduled activatable demands. Putting the different activation strategies and also the different situations in a nutshell, you can basically conclude from the slides that the Baltic TSOs have a significantly higher activation. So maybe one number: in the first week of operation, the Baltic TSOs altogether have had more MFR activations than Czechia, Austria, and Germany altogether in the entire year. So basically, you see that there is a difference, and due to the specific situations at this point in time, there is an amount of unsatisfied demands at the Baltics, but this will most likely change after the transitional phase is over. With this in mind, let's go for the next slide, because it gives you a better overview on the different demands, and I think this makes it even better to understand what I've already showed you on the previous slides. This slide focuses not now on the energy volumes, but on the number of submitted demands. And again, the upper part is for positive MFR and the lower part is for negative MFR. And you can very well see here that what I already told you on the last slide, in Czechia, there's the strategy to use elastic scheduled activation demands. In Austria, we have more the tendency to also go for direct activation demands, while the Germans focus on price inelastic scheduled activations, similar to the colleagues from the Baltics, where again the Baltics have not only a higher energy volume of activations, but also a higher number of activations. Having that said, I would suggest to go for the next one and focus on the prices, which is rather interesting. You see now, because it's easier to visualize, the prices for the positive MFR activation on the left-hand side and for the downward MFR activations on the right-hand side. And we did several things here. What do we show? We show the cross-border marginal price. So it's not the price per country. This is because we don't have continuous activations, but it's really the cross-border marginal price. You see it over the month, and it's a box plot, so you can see the inner range, and you see the outliers above or below. As circles. And the interesting part is that a large range of prices is far below plus minus 5,000 euros per megawatt hour. So we hardly have really huge outliers. There have been some price incidents in Mari, yes, but the overall number for MFR has really been limited. this is, you don't see them here because we have really cut the lines here at plus 5,000 and minus 5,000 to make it better visible, because if we hit an outlier, an extreme price, it can go to the maximum, but then you would not be able to see the inner part of these prices. So basically, the majority of the activations is really small volumes and also resulting in small prices on average. There is the tendency, but this is still only a tendency, to have higher average prices as well as more outliers for positive MFR. So for negative MFR, this is this occurs less frequent. And also interesting, the accession of the Baltics has had no significant impact on the distribution of the prices. So for this rather short period at this point in time, this is why we might change this reporting next year when our area of observation is a bit bigger. We have analyzed in October and November both areas where you could exchange MFR. So on the one hand, the continental European area consisting of Czechia, Germany, and Austria, as well as the Baltic region. But still, you see, this does not drive the prices, although, of course, the Baltics have a significant higher demand, as you have seen on the previous slide. But this is, with the higher probability of activation, at least not reflected in the pricing strategy there. Having that said, I suggest to go for the next one. Yes, this brings us to the calculation of the economic surplus. And economic surplus for us is the comparison between the actual activation of MFR with something what we call a reference scenario. And the reference scenario here implies we look at the same bits, we look at the same demands and the same market design, so marginal pricing and all these things. But we assume, we stipulate and force the algorithm, so to say, to do a market clearing without exchange of balancing energy. So basically, then you have a result as is, so today's result, and a what-if result, assuming that you do not have any exchange. And with this, you can then calculate all your market results, basically saying what would be the producer rent, so what would the producers gain, what would be the consumer rent, so what would the consumer pay, what would be the congestion income, so basically what does the TSO get from this difference between the prices between the on the border on the one side and the other side of the border. And having this in mind, if you then look at the comparisons, you end up in this graph. So it just basically says what is the change in the producer rent in a country, what is the change in the consumer rent of a country, and the change in the congestion income of a country, with and without having the exchange of MFR balancing energy at place. And you see it here visualized per country. And basically, you see that in most countries, the big exception is Lithuania here, we have a positive producer rent and negative producer rent and a positive consumer rent. Negative producer rent implies the producer can earn less money if exchange is possible, while the consumer saves some money. You can see in slight green on the top that there is also some congestion income generated. but the overall numbers are obviously more limited than in Picasso. So the Picasso colleagues had more than 100 million euros of economic surplus. If you sum up all bars in Mari, due to the limited amount of activations we see, this economic surplus for now sums up to 6 million euro from January to mid-November. We are curious how it will evolve next year as we have more TSOs joining, and of course also the Baltic TSOs not only connected for a longer period in time, but maybe they're also able to exchange with the continental European region. This might also make the market much more attractive. There is one thing we have not yet considered, but you see the number in the very last bullet point, and maybe that gives you an impression of the potential impact. You might recall from one of the previous slides that there is quite some unsatisfied demand in the Baltic region. If we would consider this in this platform analysis, then we would have a significantly higher economic surplus. It would increase up to 468 million euro, so significantly higher. We intentionally, and this also applies for Picasso, by the way, do not consider these values, as obviously there's something strange happening in our calculation, because this usually results from the fact that without any exchange, you cannot even cover your demand at all, and this is why this then results in this extremely high economic surplus. Is to be treated with care, but we at least wanted to show the value here so that you are aware that once we have all countries connected in one common region, there is the possibility, the opportunity to generate even higher economic surplus. This now concludes our outlook to the operational platform reporting. And Václav, I may hand back to you for the Accession roadmap.
Thank you, Ulf. So this is the Accession roadmap. What you can see in your screens is the last published Accession roadmap from October 2024. As you can see, a couple of TSOs already managed to be connected. Lastly, with Spain. The next one in the queue, so to say, is Belgium, likely in March 2025 with Belgian Elia. The other TSOs are as shown, and what can be promised to stakeholders is in the first semester of the next year we will try to provide a new Accession roadmap. That's that. With better or with updated dates. In the blue you can see the changes from the past. That being said, I think we can move to the next slide, which provides the graphical interpretation. Here we can see the connected or TSO in operation. I said Baltics, then let's say Central European or Central European region, if you like. Then TSO sharing the ATC is France, and as said yesterday, successfully connecting Spain, and meaning also later on Portugal, or later on once the decoupled mode is disabled, then there will be a chance to do the exchange between, for example, Slovakia and Portugal to bring it to the extreme. So that's about the geographical representation of Accession roadmap. And with that, I believe we can move to the explanation of ATC sharing. That was one of the wish we heard elsewhere. We shall provide. So To provide a little bit of a context, I will now try to explain the concept of ATC sharing in detail. The objective of available transmission capacity sharing, the ATC, is to voluntarily enable member TSOs who are not yet operational to increase the balancing energy exchange possibilities for operational TSOs. So on an example, on the picture below, you can see France is providing cross-border capacities in between France and Germany, and in between France and Spain, and that shall allow the exchange if there are capacities and the outcome of algorithm allows that. As a side effect, the ATC sharing TSO participates in distribution of possible congestion income generated on its borders. As the last bullet point, RT or France is supplying the ATC sharing on voluntary basis to facilitate MFR scheduled activation only exchanges between otherwise not directly connected areas as indicated in the picture below. So that's that in a nutshell and simplicity. This is ATC sharing. I think now we can move to the last slide. That's the summary and outlook. So to summarize, in 2024, more than a couple of TSOs connected, joined to Mari successfully, namely Elring, AST, and Litgrid, all around the same time. Follow at the beginning of October. At the end of November, it was Portuguese REN, followed at the beginning of December by Slovakian SEPS, and lastly, yesterday, the Spanish Red Electrica, who has successfully joined the Mari. The voluntary ATC sharing of RTE now enables MFR exchange between the Iberian Peninsula and the Central European region of Mari. As said, in operational reporting, economic surplus of Mari sums up to 6 million euros from January till mid-November 2024, so it is expected it will be slightly higher by the end of the year. The most economic surplus is generated in Germany in around 2 million euros, considering the unsatisfied demand that significantly increased the economic surplus to 468 million euros. That's just considering. And what benefits lies there once the whole Europe is connected and joined to Mari or other balancing platforms. More reliable calculation of economic surplus to be expected after exchange between Baltic TSOs and Mari core region can be enabled. That's indeed the truth. Can be concluded also that the moderate MFR prices has been seen throughout this year because there has been only 6 price incidents in 2024. You can see the exact dates in the brackets. And as a highlight, in the first week of operation, the Baltic TSOs have activated more MFR than APG, CHEPs, and German TSOs in 2024 due to different constraints in system operation and in general different operational approach towards balancing. For the outlook in 2025, Mari will continuously grow by further accessions, and you will be informed on that regularly on the Mari web pages, where you are recommended to rely on for reliable information about accession of the TSOs, about the planet updates, about all relevant information. Rely on ENTSO-E web pages. Thank you. That being said, and looking at the time, we have a couple more minutes, so we can try to tackle a couple of the Mari-specific questions, if there are any, in the Slido.
Yes, so we have a lot of here already. At least from Picasso platform, from Mari platform.
So I'll
The
start
first
from
one
the
from
bottom.
the general one.
Okay,
Oh.
sorry, go ahead. drive it.
That was from the first one. From the general one was, what can we expect from the recent addition from Portugal and Spain to Mari?
Well, simple. I will answer simple, but it's not as simple. Well, it will increase the competition because there shall be, because of the ATC sharing, there shall be the larger pool of the bits. So that's the benefit for end consumers and TSOs. For BSPs, there is clearly a higher chance of being activated. If you are in the money, so to say, you can be activated and therefore help to balance the system and make the profit, being more effective and efficient in the end, everyone. That's the answer, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can go here already with the ones on the slide here, because we have a lot already. So
Okay,
maybe we
good.
can start from the bottom. Can you clarify the difference between the direct and scheduled activations and give an example?
So it's more scheduled and then direct activation when it comes to exact order. Scheduled is at given point in time. So that activation occur only once per MTU. And here the netting of demand can occur if there are conditions allowing that. Direct activation happens, well, directly upon the request of given TSO. It's a manual activation. Whenever there is an outage or need for activation evaluated by given TSOs, then given TSOs can ask for direct activation. What I think is needed to highlight is that scheduled activation allows elastic demand, while direct activation does not allow that. Direct activation is always inelastic, no matter what I want energy. Ulf,
maybe to make it, one or two minor additions. The scheduled activation happens at every change of the quarter hour, while the direct activation basically can be done every minute. So there is then a minute activation cycle. This is from a technical perspective important because it limits the time we have for the calculation of the AOF, the activation optimization function result. This was a part where the Picasso colleagues only have had this 4 seconds for the optimization. We have a longer period in time, but still it's time-wise limited.
Yeah. Thank you, Ulf.
Thank you. So we can go to the. I'm taking here as well the question from Thomas. So that's we consider that as replied as well.
Yeah.
So we can move to the second one from the bottom. Can we ask you to send out the materials that we presented today? Just to reply to this one, the materials are already posted on the website, so you can already look them at the moment. Even the one for Terre as well. So if you'd like to proceed on that, you can do it. Yeah, I hope that's answers your question. Here you also mentioned that that you're also interested where I can follow the prices volumes changes on the such platforms on Picasso and Mari in terms of products. Here I believe you can, I don't know if you guys would like to answer this, but you can go to the transparency platform and you can get the volumes there and the prices. But I don't know if you would like to clarify this more.
Yeah, well, my knowledge, both shall be available at transparency platform.
So both you should be able to access on the transparency platform. On the question here, could you provide a similar price graphic as AMFRR, also for Picasso?
So
that's more question towards Picasso, not to Mari. If I understand
I think technically it should work. Let's align with the colleagues.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, we'll be answering all your questions, the ones that via Word document. So just as a reminder. So here we also answered this as one. What's the difference between direct and schedule? Why the share of it differ per TSO, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe there I give it a try. You see here really that there are, and that's good actually, that there are different strategies on how to operate your system or to balance your system by TSO. We are with manual frequency restoration with a manual process, and this implies that you can have different strategies. For instance, the Germans or the German TSOs having quite some AFR have the tendency to go only for MFR scheduled activation. So once every quarter hour there is the option to do something or you do nothing, while other TSOs have the tendency to go more for the direct activations. This is with the colleagues from APG who have a bit less AFR, and then say, look, if I have an imbalance, then I really want to cover it with a direct activation, all as tendencies here. And the colleagues from Czechia have a specific product at hand locally, so they have the tendency to go for a price elastic MFR activation approach, having a local alternative at hand. So there you see there are different strategies, and to some extent it's good if not everybody exactly the same, because it gives some variety to the system and to the balancing process.
Yeah, as said, it allows for different strategies to balance, and really it can change even throughout the day or year, depends on the situation. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel, for reading the question. The next one is, how are the ATCs calculated, if I read it correctly? So those are basically the remaining capacities from XBit or SIDC. Those are sent forward and used unless there are some operational reasons to change it. Ulf, would you add anything on that?
No, I think that's perfectly fine. And okay. Of course, there are concepts to do some additional capacity calculation, but I think this is more for the future.
Indeed. Daniel, the next one.
Yeah, so maybe we can also go for the first one here. What date do we expect Spain and Portugal to start actually sharing Mari with Germany and Austria?
Well, as said yesterday, the Spain has access or connected to Mari. Portugal has been connected for a while. Now Spain is gathering the operational experiences. We hope, and that's really the expectation, pending on the operational results and other aspects, there is an expectation that, say, around 17, 18 of December, the first exchange, if there are capacities and other conditions fulfilled, could occur.
Maybe to avoid confusion, it's not about sharing MFR with Mari. It's about exchanging MFR, balancing energy, and this is enabled by the ATC sharing of the French colleagues, which is great. I'm a bit insisting on this here because sharing of reserves is something different, and we should not confuse the different processes.
Yeah, thank you, Ulf. Yeah, what I was answering was to exchange of balancing energy.
Yeah, here we have 2 more questions, and I'm looking at the time now as well, because we have a limited, and if we don't want to skip the coffee break, perhaps. At least I have 5 minutes break. Maybe have 2 more questions here at the top. So are there deliberately ATC left free for Mari after usage for these capacities for Picasso or IGCC?
No, it's actually even other way around. So maybe I start as a point zero. Point zero is there are no ATCs deliberately left at the intraday market for these other processes. There is one exception, but this is in a balancing capacity cooperation. I think that's not meant here. And and as Mari has a longer lead time, we have this 12.5 minutes lead time before an activation. Actually, any ATC is used by Mari first before going to Picasso or IGCC, just due to the longer lead time. And we don't, at this point in time, leave ATCs deliberately left for any other process. It's at this point in time really a first come, first served principle.
And then the last one here that we have regarding ATCs if that's the same starting point, if they have the same starting point left over intraday, how are they shared between Picasso and Mari?
Yeah, that's indeed very similar. So it's at this point in time, first come, first serve. So if you go for, if you have, let's take an example, 50 megawatts on your border, and there is 50 megawatts MFR activation, and it goes completely cross-border, so make it really simple now, then the entire capacity is used for MFR and there's nothing left for AFR. If we don't use anything for MFR activation, then of course it can be fully used for AFR or imbalance netting. And keep in mind, it's a simplified example because you can always exchange in the other direction or negative MFR and all these things. But it's to keep it really simple. This is at this point in time how it works.
Thanks. Maybe we can take the last one from the general here. What is the role of non-operational members like Italy have in the Mari project at the moment?
Preparing for accession. That's that. Following what is the latest development, if they need to change anything in their local implementation, and sooner or later connect. That's
keep in mind, all TSOs have at the first been non-operational members, and we are just gradually becoming operational.
Okay. So I think that's basically it for the current questions for Mari. Just as a reminder, if we haven't managed to answer your question, we'll be compiling them on the Word document and the answer is as fully as possible. So now we have scheduled a 10 minutes coffee break for just to grab a coffee. So just please be back at 3:10 for the Terre session, and then we can start over with the webinar. Thanks very much, everyone, and see you in 10 minutes.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Right, it's 3:10, so we're gonna start again now with the Terre section. So we'll pass it over to Javier from Red Electrica. So please, Javier, over to you.
Hello, thank you. Well, so this is Javier Dragova from Radio Electrica, representing the Terre project today. I will make a first introduction of the project and the status of it. Daniel, please go to next slide, in which we see the agenda. After that introduction, we will talk about the operational results of this year, and then to the main point of the presentation regarding the end of the project. Lastly, as for the previous parts, we will have a question and answers slot, and then we will go to the general question and answers part. Going into the introduction, here you can see a map of the TSO's participants in the Terre project. You can see we have 7 members, 5 of them operational, 2 non-operational. We also have 1 observer apart from ENTSO-E, and 3 other project members for reasons of reutilization of the IT solution. In this project, well, for Terre, I will not present how it is handled, as is similar to the previous projects in a model, in a TSO model, and it was presented in the previous stakeholder workshops. In the next slide, we have the order in which we connected. First of all, CHEPS started on January 2020, followed by Red Electrica in March. Then due to COVID, we had a very big gap until Portugal joined in September, allowing first exchanges in the platform in the Iberian Peninsula. Then we got the connection from Swissgrid, RTE, and Terre. And we had an exit from the project as due to Brexit, United Kingdom had to leave the cooperation. Then we are now starting the process, the inverse process, as we had the disconnection from CHEPS 1st of July this year. PSE, given the status of the project and that we will end it, will finally not connect. And Terre has already communicated that will disconnect on 1st of January of the next year, or end of this year. And then the rest of the TSOs, Red Electrica, REN, Swissgrid, and RTE will communicate its disconnection later on, but as we will see later, it will probably be end of next year. Then we will move to operational results. We will be presenting operational results of this year from January to October. Starting from the economical surplus as it was presented in the previous projects. Here in Terre, we have an economic surplus averaging 40 million euros, with a very high peak in April, reaching 135 millions. This was specifically due to an important demand in the negative direction, as we will see also in the next slide. In here, we are showing well the volumes of the bits of the BS that are sent by BSPs. you might see them in positive direction, upward offers and negative offers. If you compare to the demand volumes at the top right part of the slide, you might see that they are that the bid volumes are in the range of the tens of thousands of megawatt hours, of millions of megawatt hours, sorry, and the demands on the hundreds of thousands of megawatt hours. So there is a very high level of satisfaction of the demand due to this very high level of volumes bids available. In the demand volumes also, you can see the peak in April in the negative direction, following the comment from last slide. Also, the bid activation volumes are very related to demand volumes, as they are obviously activated for satisfying the demands, apart from the possibilities of netting. In here, we can see that these activations range also in the hundreds of thousands of megawatt hours as the demands. So on average, more than 10 terawatt hours in both directions of activations. Sorry, of volumes submitted to the platform. Then we see that during the third quarter of the year 2024, we had an activations in the positive direction on average to 253,000 megawatt hours, and in the negative direction 385,000. Then regarding availability of the Libra platform, which is the IT solution developed by the Terre project for the exchange of the RR product, we had it available at all times, with the exception of an incident that occurred late in December, lasting for 4 hours. Then we can move to the central part of the presentation, which is the end of the project. So as I was saying before, we will close the project end of next year. The reason for that is that, as you might know, there was a new electricity market design reform that was adopted on May this year, and in this reform, there was an article establishing a new cross-zonal intraday gate closure time, 30 minutes before real time. So this gate closure time is not compatible with the RR process, as the RR process consists in a long full activation time. As you can see in the image below, at the top part, we can see the RR process, and below the MFRR process as comparison. First, we have the closure of the biddings by BSPs at H-555. Then 15 minutes later, TSOs have to send their information or their needs, the offers that from the BSPs and the capacities. And after some optimization, we have the start of the activation period at H-30, which is exactly the same moment in time in which the new intraday gate closure time is set. And then after this 30 minutes of activation period, we have a delivery period of minimum 15 minutes and up to 1 hour. So with all these, it is absolutely impossible to make the process happen in these 30 minutes, as reducing the full activation time would imply very high similarity with the MRR process and an important loss of liquidity. These two statements were also shared by stakeholders in the public survey that we did in May this year. Sorry. In the next slide, please, Daniel. We have the conclusions of this. So, as I was saying, it is no longer viable to continue with the Terre project, and as this intraday closure time will have to be applied in January 2026. So we decided to close the platform at that point in time. Regarding this decision, just this Monday, we published an official decision in the Terre section of the ENTSO-E website that you can consult already, in which we share the details of this decision, but similarly to the ones I'm presenting now. The direct consequence would be that after assessments, we will not implement 96 clearings in this RR process due to the huge financial impact that this would have, as well as operational or IT efforts in both TSOs and BSP side for a very short period of operation. It would only be for 2025 or not even complete. So this was also presented in the workshop I was mentioning before in May 2024, and then finally shared in June. So in the last 6 months, we have been working on the project on how to conclude, how to properly end operational, legal, and financial aspects, and together all this in cooperation with NRAs. In the next slide, please, Daniel, we can see the planning for this closure of the project. As we were saying at the first slides, CHEPS disconnected in July of this year. PSC will not connect, so will change its status until end of this year. And Terre will also disconnect end of this year. During 2025, Red Electrica, REN, RTE, and Swissgrid will remain participating with the 24 clearings scenario until end of this year, next year, sorry. Meaning that all Terre operations will stop at 31st of December 2025, and at that point in time we will start all the decommissioning process, which we expect to be finished end of Q1 2026 at the latest. Next slide, please, Daniel. The impact of this closure of the project can be, well, we divided here into parts. First, the legal impact, well, as stipulated by NRAs during the public stakeholder that we organized very recently. The end of the project has, well, the direct consequence of not using the RR product by Terre TSOs. So we will not be involved in a European implementation project for exchanging this replacement reserve product. which was set in Article 19 of the EBGL, and meaning that no other European TSO will be exchanging RR standard products across Europe. No, we will gradually stop performing this replacement reserve process, and we will replace this balancing process with alternative solutions that will vary from country to country. But an important product that will be replacing would be the MFR product in the MARI platform. Then operationally, it's as we said, well, we investigated all the operational impacts for securing balancing in our countries, and you are of course invited to contact your national TSOs. As I was saying, the replacement of this balancing product will depend on each national situation. There is also to mention a decrease in liquidity that we expect, given also the answers from the previous workshops, but it is also anticipated that most part of this liquidity will be maintained in the MARI platform, so as in the MFRR product. And I believe this is all we have for today for the Terre project. Now we can start with the questions if there are.
Yes, so please ask your questions here by Slido. We had one on why TSO is disconnecting, but I believe Javier already answered this after this question was answered. So
yeah, I guess so.
So I think we don't need to reply to this question.
Well,
but we're waiting for other questions at the moment.
As we wait for the questions, they are being typed. Just to insist, well, the reason for disconnecting is obviously the reasons we were saying on not being able to perform the process anymore when the NuGet closure time is in place.
So here we have another one for RR, so for Terre. So what are alternative solutions to RR consider transition in phase 2 MARI?
Well, alternate solutions will depend on national level, but mainly TSOs will transition to MARI directly. All members of the Terre project are members of the MARI project and will transition to that product. You might have seen that CHIPS is already disconnected from the RR process, but it's already connected to the MFRR platform. Red Electrica and REN are for the moment in both, and RTE, PSE, and Terre are also to connect to the MARI platform.
Okay, and then we have another one here. Well, I think you just answered this question as well, but do you have any ideas of what would be there instead of Terre? So yeah, you just answered this one again, but I don't know if you want to clarify. Yeah.
No, will be the same answer as before, but of course nationally there could be some other particularities. We of course encourage you to contact your national TSO for more information if it's not already provided, or if it's not, I'm sure it will be soon. So
yeah. Thanks, Javier. Ulf, do you want to say something?
No, sorry, fine.
Sorry. Brian, we're waiting for your questions on Terre. We're a bit ahead of schedule on the webinar.
Yeah.
Good. Another one here. So the Mari and Terre products are drastically different, and the pre-qualification rules for assets to participate in the two platforms are also different. Despite this, do you think there will be a transfer of liquidity from Terre to Mari?
Yeah. Well, pre-qualification rules are very national at very national level, and well, Mari and Terre products are different. It's true, but they are both manual products. Also can be normally scheduled, even well, normally. Even with direct activations, there is some full activation time not negligible, no, 12.5 minutes. And so we do think they are similar. The idea of having or the reason for saying that we expect a transition of this liquidity from Terre to Mari is because we got this answer from stakeholders, both in the Terre workshop, so in answers to a survey that was made on the project, but also nationally, each TSO got this feedback from their VSPs. So it is of course not absolutely all liquidity will be transferred. Some might be lost, but it is expected to be minor compared to the volume currently available.
If I may complement, so basically, on the one hand, of course, there might at least be a change in liquidity. On the other hand, keep in mind, and this was also one of the driving parts in the discussions, if I recall correctly, with an intraday market closer to the real time. In the end, it will most likely be a split from either things going to the intraday market, other things going to Mari or to local products. So there will be, it will find its way.
Yeah, thank you, Ulf.
Thanks, Ulf. Thanks, Javier. Look for any more questions on Terre at the moment. We're still a bit ahead of schedule for the general questions overall.
Maybe we can go to that, Daniel, and in case there are still dedicated questions to Terra, we can also answer them during that session. So
yes.
Oh, sure, I agree.
Thanks very much, Javier. So let's go to the general Q&A. And then here you can also ask just questions general, either for either platform or just in general. So yeah, please just ask your questions here.
Also, I don't know if there has been any questions so far which we have not answered, but in the meantime,
yes,
we can also do so.
that's what I was gonna suggest as well now, as before we wait for the ones here in general. So perhaps we can just ask a couple, perhaps on Mari. First, in countries with MFR capacity markets, how TSOs submit energy bids? Must BSP submit energy bids if they win capacity tenders?
Is this a question or a statement?
Well, it's framed as a question.
Okay, nice. So it's true, of course, that quite some of the bids or balancing energy bids which we receive are actually contracted bids, so are submitted as they were also awarded, or the volume was also awarded with a capacity price. That's true. What we observe, and I put it now more general intentionally, what we observe for both AFR and MFR that we do get some additional free bits indeed. So you might recall that especially in Germany, no, there were no additional free bits for quite some time. This was changed, so we also have free bits right now. And indeed, we gather additional volumes. For obvious reasons, more additional volume of free bits for AFR, but still quite some for, or at least some for MFR. Why more for AFR? Due to higher activation probability. If you place a bit without a capacity price and make it available, then you have the tendency to also want to be activated, and then you go for AFR usually.
Okay, so thanks, Ulf. Maybe we can go with another one. I still don't see questions here on this slide. What is the role of the CSP?
The CSP, or yeah, if I may, the CSP or common service provider is the TSO who has the task to establish and operate the activation optimization function, and he does this for all TSOs connected to the platform. And for Picasso and IGCC, Transnet BW acts as common service provider, while for Mari, Amprion is acting as common service provider.
Thanks, Ulf. Then we go with another one. Is it possible to have a comparison of the criteria of pre-qualification, qualification of assets that can participate to Mari depending on the country?
So I believe that there is no such international overview as exists, as the country-specific pre-qualifications are in the terms and conditions of each country and TSO. So the general rules of Mari are described both in the implementation framework and in the business documents, but that's for the international part. If you wish to see country-specific pre-qualification rules, then I have to refer you to the TSO terms and conditions, but there is no such overview between all TSOs.
Perhaps one with regard to Picasso. In Germany, with its balancing capacity markets, the capacity tenders are related with the energy bids submitted to Picasso. That's a question, so maybe I can repeat.
So in Germany, there are two markets for this. So there's first the capacity market, that's day ahead, and then during the intraday, the energy market that then closes 25 minutes before the real time.
It's not a linked market anymore. So when we started at the very beginning, so we're going quite some years back now, before guideline electricity balancing implementation, actually we have had bids consisting of a volume, a capacity price, and an energy price in one single auction, which we do not have anymore this in nowadays. Nowadays you submit a bid, and if you're awarded with a capacity price, you have to submit a balancing energy bid. But you can also participate in the balancing energy auction, which is this auction 25 minutes before real time, without being awarded for balancing capacity.
Indeed, but the person who raised the question, I think, see the link correctly in that sense that the capacity bids which are awarded in the capacity market then needs to be submitted for the energy market, and in that sense they are eventually will appear on Picasso. So there is this logical connection between, but not an automatic one. Indeed.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Maybe here's a question here already on the slide. Are the platforms fully automatic?
Yes, the platforms itself are fully automatic. So every activation is done automatically. For MFR, so for Mari, the demands are done manually.
Yeah, but the platform still itself is automatic because you don't want to do this manually 24/7.
Here's also another general question. Balancing platforms are striving to establish a harmonized balancing price. Is there a project that strives to harmonize the imbalanced price across the EU?
To my
Yes,
knowledge,
so
go ahead.
yeah, so regarding that, there has been also a TSO proposal for imbalance settlement harmonization, which is a different project team compared to the balancing platforms. And yeah, for further details, I would refer you to this imbalance settlement harmonization proposal, which you can also find on ENTSO-E webpage.
Just to clarify, it's not a proposal, it's already methodology that has been implemented.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You can find these materials on the ENTSO website. So maybe we can go with the next one here on the side. Do the local TSOs decide if the products MFR and AFR can be offered symmetrically or symmetrically? Asking for a friend who owns a wind farm.
Actually, the standard product is asymmetrically, so you don't have to offer positive and negative AFR or MFR at the same point in time.
So these are completely individual bids.
Yeah.
And you are offering a bid to a single direction, of at least for energy. So I hope your friend is happy with the wind farm.
I see there's someone typing here as well. Maybe we could just do one more for the general questions on these that we have from before. Is there an option of also doing LMP in the future?
So
I don't know what LMP stands for.
Local marginal price, most likely, but we are guessing now, that it makes it a bit challenging.
We can come back to you with the Q&A Word document after further investigation for this question.
But in case LMP stands for local marginal price, I think we can provide an answer. So it is not foreseen to switch to LMP, but to keep with the cross-border marginal price as it is one of the essence of the EBGL regarding these platforms. So the only case when a TSO is standalone forming one uncongested area because of no cross-border capacity allowed for any direction, then its marginal price is basically the local marginal price. But in other cases, we rely on the cross-border one.
Yeah, but and then we keep it like that, I think, just to avoid confusion, we are still talking about zonal prices. We are not talking about nodal prices. TSOs are not aiming into that direction.
Indeed.
We have a question here on the slide. What are the interfacing requirements for these platforms, and are they the same with all country participants, including time constraints?
Yes, but keep in mind these platforms are so-called TSO platforms. So intentionally, we don't force balancing service providers to connect to the platforms, but keep the local setups. So TSOs and BSPs do some local connection, and it's just the TSOs forwarding the bits. And yes, the time constraints are basically the same for everybody because it's just it is a standardized connections TSO or TSO platform.
Yes, but then between the TSO BSP connection, depending on your national rules, there can be different requirements. and also different implementations, what kind of messages are expected. So for these, there are some standardized implementation guides, which we can refer you to, but the national rules are not regulated by Mari or Picasso platforms, where the BSCPs are connected.
We have also some of the general questions on the general Q&A, but we ask you to also submit your questions, especially via this Slido here on the slide. But maybe we can go a couple of others that we have. Has more data been published about unsatisfied MFR demand other than Site 44, for example, on the transparency platform? So if unsatisfied MFR demand has been published on the TP or not, still.
I think I would say all the demands are being submitted. So therefore, implicitly, you should be able to, well, whoever who is interested in should be able to find out.
Yeah, please look on the transparency platform for all the data requirements, and you can find a lot of information already there. Yeah. We also have a question here. Well, two questions. Perhaps it's a bit hard to understand them, but let's try to at least get an answer. Are there price limits to the bids? I understand this is for Mari. It was related to Mari, but
there is a maximum price at hand, which is currently, I hope I don't say anything wrong, 15,000 euros per megawatt hour, but there's also, as the colleagues nodding, thanks. And there are rules how prices have to increase if a price limit is reached, but this is due to under certain conditions. We have a approved proposal for that, so it's available online at ASA, at ASA's website.
And also there's two more general questions on the general chat, but please ask the questions here on the Slido. What's the difference between the two blue columns for Mari? And why there's such a big difference between satisfied demand and activated bids? Maybe we can go back to the slide. But,
yeah, maybe go back to the slides, but I think the difference between demands and activated bids is because the demand can be covered by foreign bids. So the German TSOs can have quite a demand, but a lower local activation due to the fact that they activate abroad. For instance, from Austria, if it's cheaper.
So I'm just trying to find the.
You have even skipped it, so maybe go. Yes, that one. That's a good one. Thanks. So let's maybe take the very first pair of bars in the upper graph. So Czechia, and you can see that in Czechia there is a satisfied demand in dark blue, which is higher than the activated demand, regardless if it was activated from scheduled activatable bids, light blue, or from direct activated bids in purple. And why is this the case? The case is as Czechia has imported positive MFR this year, which is basically this difference between the bars. In the left bar, the one with the dark blue, you can also see that there was some satisfied direct activation demand, and there was some, this is in green, unsatisfied scheduled activation demand, which was price elastic. This is why it was not activated, because there were no bids below this price at hand, and then the colleagues from Czechia did alternative measures on national level.
Or we simply submit the bids and we're willing to not being covered by the balancing energy.
I think it's more interesting if we now look at the exact other part. So lower graph, very right hand side, Lithuania, where you can see they have quite a satisfied scheduled activated demand, dark blue again, much more than their activated scheduled activated bits in light blue. Obviously, they imported from both Latvia and Estonia. However, and this is now in purple, they have unsatisfied scheduled activated price inelastic demand. And this is what we pointed out in the presentation, that this is at this point in time a system which is in a transition phase, because they are still connected with the Russian grid and try to do the balancing themselves. At this point in time, they have not been able to cover all their needs, and this will change after they moved to the continental European system on the one hand, and also joined the other balancing platforms on the other hand. So this is why you see here, and this basically attributes to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. You see some change in comparison to the other countries.
Alexander has raised his hand here. Don't this perhaps to contribute to the question about the publication of unsatisfied demand? So maybe I can enable the microphone, and Alexander, if you can speak now. But
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to provide some input there. In terms of publication demands on transparency platform right now, with what is being published are the volumes and prices of requested demands, elastic demands for MFRR standard products. Publication of requested volumes of elastic demand for FRR is in the pipeline, but not there yet. However, there's no obligation in the implementation frameworks to publish anything about inelastic demands or unsatisfied volumes or satisfied volumes.
Thanks, Alexander. Perhaps we can, as we still have some more time, I see there's a last question here, at least on the general chat for Picasso. So maybe we can go to slide 21, because otherwise it'd be hard to understand the question itself. Yeah, I believe this is the one. There's a difference between LFC output and AFR activation if BSP is not responding. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, the difference corrected demand LFC output is affected on the local LFC controllers. It's a bit hard to understand your question, so perhaps I don't know if you can clarify by the chat.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't get the answer to the question.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to understand the question itself. So, I mean, we'll just ask you to, whoever answered this question, if you're still in the meeting, please just ask it again. But yeah, because it's a bit hard to understand your question at the moment as it comes to framed.
But to me, the questionnaire refers to the difference between the corrected demand and the LFC output. So why is there a difference between the corrected demand and the LFC output?
Yeah, this difference is the difference is the activation period of the LFC. I think we take this question with us, we think about it, and maybe we find an answer.
Yes, so we, as a reminder, I mentioned a couple of times, we will be answering your questions again, perhaps in more detail in the Word document with the Q&A. So maybe we can just go back to the final slide and the just in general questions for the balancing platforms. So maybe we here. So we got some more questions. So maybe we can, as we still have 5 minutes, would also see a benefit. would TSOC benefit to transition to a flow-based allocation in balancing? If yes, what would be the technical challenges to solve?
Good question. I think we will take it with us.
Yeah, I think maybe
Right.
high-level answer now, and we take it with that. But I think there is, of course, with intraday flow-based also the tendency to take flow-based even closer to real time. But the obvious challenges are, I think, the things we've also discussed in various other groups. It gets even more difficult to understand the usage of the cross-zonal capacity afterwards, and complexity of the model related to really limited computation time. I think this is also what should be kept in mind. Knowing that for AFR you have 4 seconds to calculate at maximum, and for MFR if it's basically about a minute, and so there still is quite some complexity ahead of us.
So we'll come back to you with the detailed answer on the Q&A document.
This one.
And here we have another one. This will be the general rules for the demand in MARI, Article 29 of EPGL. Just for abbreviations, EPGL is EP regulation.
Yeah.
Maybe I would recommend it's a good article, of course. So we like it, but I would recommend, if you want to have the general or specific rules, to not only look at the guideline electricity balancing, but also the implementation framework, which goes more into details. Because you might not only want to have the general rule, and the article is correct, but also to have the details, which is the implementation framework.
I see there's another question on the general poll. Just please ask you to ask questions here on the slide. But there's another one on the general poll. What challenge do you foresee for the balancing platforms with the intraday crosser and intraday
gate closure time, GCT?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are
an intraday day ahead and intraday has 8 IDAs.
Intraday auctions.
Intraday auctions. Okay. So it's about the auctions, not the gate closure time of the continuous trading. That's interesting. I had expected the other one, but okay.
I will read the question again. What challenges do you foresee for the balancing platforms with intraday CROSA? I'm not familiar with this acronym. Then it's hard, at least to me, it's hard to answer. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
we would
we'll try
also
to
suggest to specify the question, because at least this way the 2 acronyms is hard to release them.
Coordinated regional operational security assessment. That's the acronym. Coordinated regional operational security assessment. So what challenge do you foresee for the balancing platforms with intraday coordinated regional operational security assessment and intraday auctions?
I would suggest to take this question with us and then provide the feedback later.
We'll try to provide an answer in written. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then
we don't see any other questions either here or in the chat, so maybe we can give you 1 more minute to ask any questions that you have.
So if this is not the case, then I think we also reached our time limit for today. And I would like to thank all of you for this very active participation. It was really good to see the high number of attendees during the full call, and even at the end, we are almost 150 people. So thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I hope that we could have give you some useful updates. And as already stated several times, we will try to provide the feedbacks in written form, and then waiting for you for the next time. And in the meantime, of course, don't hesitate to submit questions in the known channels. And thank you all for the colleagues as well for their presentation, and you for the attendees. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. So
Thanks a
just
lot.
as a reminder, we have this meeting recorded and this will be posted on the website. So hopefully you can also access there. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.